with stories that matter to you. This is Fox 6 News.
And thanks for joining us. In 15 and a half months, you'll decide who should be Wisconsin's governor. Today, we'll look at the candidates and what's at stake. It's the first open race with no incumbent running since 2010. This marathon to November 2026 starts with a sprint. On Thursday, Governor Tony Evers revealed he wasn't running. Listen.
Hey, Wisconsin, Governor Tony Evers here. You know, I was a scrawny kid with glasses who grew up scraping mold off of cheese. I never dreamed I'd end up governor of Wisconsin, but here I am. For the last 6 years, you welcomed me in through your churches, businesses, classrooms, farms, hospitals, and communities. I cherish every moment, every tour, visit, high five, question, and selfie. It's the honor of my life to be able to give back to the state that raised me. I promised you when I ran for this office, and I'd always work to do the right thing, and I'd always give it to you straight, and that I'd always try to be a governor for all of Wisconsin. And I work every day to keep those promises. That'll never change. I began my run for governor as a proud Plymouth progressive, and that's still who I am today. I'm a science teacher at heart who ended up running for office and winning 5 straight statewide elections. So would I win if I ran the 6th time? Of course. No question about that. But whether I'd win or not has never been part of my calculus about running again. Here's the truth, Wisconsin. The only thing I love more than being your governor is being a husband, a dad, and a grandpa. I spent 50 years in public service. I'm damn proud I devoted my entire career and most of my life to working for you. And from Plymouth to Baraboo, Toma to Oshkosh, Verona to Madison, and everywhere in between, Kathy and my family supported me all the way. Marrying Kathy is the greatest accomplishment of my life because it gave me a lifetime with her, 3 amazing kids, and 9 incredible grandkids. For 5 decades, my family has sacrificed to give me the gift of service. They're my world, and I owe it to them to focus on doing all the things we enjoy and love doing together. It's why, Wisconsin, I'm announcing that I will not be running for a 3rd term. I'm so humbled to be your governor. This is the best job I ever had. And folks, we are not done yet. There is, as always, much work to do. In Wisconsin, I'll be working just as hard as I have for the last 6 years to keep doing the right thing and deliver for you. So let's get to work. Forward for you and for Wisconsin always. Thank you.
And today, for the first time since announcing that he wasn't running, we're hearing from Governor Tony Evers. Remember, he's still your governor for another 17 months. Today, he held a town hall at Purple Door Ice Cream. He says he doesn't plan to endorse in the Democratic primary.
Probably not. I tend to try to avoid that. So, no, I'll never say never, but I want to make sure who the rest of the candidates are before I even make that decision.
On the talks of the budget, what were your conversations like with the lieutenant governor during that time? Were there any that ultimately with her got that to pass?
To her, as far as the budget goes, no, not to my knowledge. I don't remember her being a part of that conversation.
Are you concerned that Republicans have a better chance of winning the governor's office now that you are not running?
I know I would have won. I mean, it would have been close. Wisconsin's a purple state, but having done it twice, I felt confident. But no, I think we get the right candidate, we'll win.
The lieutenant governor had videos ready to go the day after your announcement. How early did you give her the heads up, and what were those conversations like?
It was just at the same time I let my cabinet members know the day of. So the idea that there was, from what you said, something already done the day before or whatever, you'll have to ask her why that happened.
How did you come to your decision not to run again?
That was a hard one. I thought about it a lot and didn't make up my mind until I'd say the day before I made the announcement. It was just difficult. I mean, I have a family and my great spouse Kathy that it's hard to be part of that family if you're governor. I'll put it as simply as that. I've been in public office or not public office, but working for state, local governments for 50 years. It's a long time, and I felt this time this is all about me, frankly, and that's why I made that decision.
So the governor there giving some insight into his decision-making and saying he didn't let the people closest to him, his cabinet, as well as the lieutenant governor, know until pretty much the day that he made that determination. The lieutenant governor had posted her campaign video privately on YouTube the week before the Governor Evers had announced that he was actually not going to be running for re-election. We'll have more on that coming up. But I want to show you a Marquette Law School poll. It shows most people did not want Evers to run for a third term. 55% those polled said no, they didn't want to see him run for a third term. 42%, though, they said yes, they wanted to see him run. The majority of Republicans said they didn't want him to run, while Democrats said yes, they wanted him to run. Independents skewed slightly towards no on that answer, on that question. We'll look at the numbers with Marquette pollster Charles Franklin coming up. But first, let's look at who's already said they're running for governor. And this list could get much longer. We spoke with the Democrats and Republicans who have launched campaigns or said they plan to run. First up, let's hear from the Republican candidates.
I'm interested in your reaction when you learned Governor Evers isn't seeking another term. Does this help Republicans without an incumbent Democrat on the ballot?
Yeah, I wasn't terribly surprised. It seemed like Governor Evers was ready to retire and made the decision to do that on his own. It's certainly an open field. First time since 2010 we'll have an open race. And last time we had that, a county executive who was the son of a minister ran and won and did pretty well.
What do you think are the biggest issues in this race, and what would your promises be to voters about what you could deliver on those issues?
The biggest issues I continue to hear, I've hit 43 counties in just over 70 days, talked to thousands of people, and they were really concerned about the affordability of the state of Wisconsin, whether it's high income taxes, property taxes that continue to go up with a 402-year veto from the governor, or so much more, the inflationary costs. We really need to help people where they are at, and that's why I'm going to meet them where they are at. We need to build a shared vision for the state and really get state spending under control.
So you are a county executive, and David Crowley, who's running as a Democrat, is also a county executive. What do you think it is about that job in particular that could translate well to the governor's office?
Well, I think it is one defining feature as a county executive. Running an executive branch at the government level is a unique experience. We oftentimes in this country elect governors to be the president because I think people in the state and this country appreciate that. I think if you look at my record here in Washington County, I think it speaks for itself. I think it'll translate well into Madison. I think that's why I'll be governor in January of 2027.
Obviously, there's a learning curve for any job, but what do you anticipate some of the biggest learning curves would be for you if you were to win?
Clearly, the partisanship in Madison is a huge challenge, and the size of the state. There's a lot of people in this state, and it's a long geographic drive from the southeast to the northwest and the southwest to the northeast. So making sure you're listening to all people. We haven't had a candidate that has pressed the flesh and burned the shoe leather, really worked the entire state in a long time, worked with the grassroots. And so that's the kind of candidate I'm going to be in this campaign.
I'm interested in your thoughts on some of the Democrats who have been throwing their hats into the ring already today. We mentioned David Crowley, also Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez. Any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think that list is going to be very, very long. But if you look at what's happened, past being prologue, this governor's budget that he proposed was a 20% increase in spending, $2 billion in net new taxes, 1,300 new bureaucrats, and took us from a surplus to a deficit in just 2 years. You look at the governance of a lot of the candidates who've already announced, a lot of the ones who are going to likely announce. It's not a great track record. More government spending and less money in your pocket. Washington County has been the opposite. Our focus is on the people. That's who I will be as a candidate, and that's who I'll be as governor in 2027.
Josh Schoeman, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
So that was Washington County Executive Josh Schoeman speaking to us on Friday, just a day after Governor Tony Evers announced and revealed he was not going to be running for re-election. Josh Schoeman running on the Republican side. Another person running for that Republican primary is also running right now, officially launched his campaign, Bill Berrien. He's a former Navy SEAL and a Wisconsin businessman. Take a listen.
The first question is why? You have a successful business, you volunteered coaching, you got your family. Why jump in on this?
Well, Sam, I spent nine years in the Navy SEAL teams. It shaped my character. They taught us to lead. They taught us to fight. Now for the last 13 years, I've been a manufacturing business owner. We fight China, we build American, we buy American, and we create opportunities for American. I'm an outsider and a businessman, just like President Trump. And I have a vision for making this Wisconsin century, starting this decade. We need leaders who have our back, and there is a lot that we can accomplish as a state, with our manufacturing, with our agriculture. So I'm running for governor to take back the state.
Bill, it's Kim Murphy here. Let me ask you, you mentioned President Trump. Have you spoken with him? Is that an endorsement that you will be seeking, or would you accept it if he does endorse you?
Kim, I have not spoken with him yet. We've been in touch with his team, and I would seek and accept that endorsement. Yes, thank you.
Bill, how does the governor announcement yesterday change your campaign in any way? Obviously, if he was going to run for a third term, you were already in this race to begin with. But does him stepping down, making this a wide open race, change anything?
Sam, honestly, it doesn't. I mean, you could always see from the lieutenant governor's launch video that, she wants to be a successor to his agenda. And as I see it, that's 6 years of the gears being in reverse for this state. Our Wisconsin motto is forward. We need to be moving forward. And I have a clear vision for taking our manufacturing ecosystem, highly trained, highly trainable workforce, the tariff, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I mean, it's like a Black Friday sale of factory expansion. No coupons required. So we got to be moving forward.
One last question. You speak of manufacturing. Southeastern Wisconsin was long a manufacturing hub, automotive plants in Kenosha, in Milwaukee, in Janesville. Those are all gone. Those are shuttered. What can the state do to support that workforce, to get that kind of vitality back into our economy?
Kim, fantastic question. So as I mentioned, running a manufacturing company for the last 13 years, my record is leadership here. We invested in technology, and then we trained the team that we already had to master that technology. And in the end, creating more value, which allowed them to capture more value. And we see dramatic increases in wage growth based on those increased skills. And I have a vision for the state supporting industry to upskill its workforce. No matter how industries change, technologies change, even personal interests change, we need to be focusing on giving skills to everyone, whether they be 18 to 75 years old, to continuously be creating more value and capturing more value. My motto is prosperity for everyone through work. And nowhere is that going to resonate across the country more powerfully than here in Wisconsin.
And I'm sure we were going to hear a lot about that over the next, 11 or so months. He's Bill Berrien, Republican candidate for governor. Bill, thanks for joining us on Fox 6 News at 4.
So those are the Republicans who for sure are in this race. They spoke to Fox 6 on Friday, just a day after Governor Tony Evers announced he was not running for re-election. Up next, we're going to hear from the Democrats with so much on the line. Stay with us. Thanks for joining us on the Wisconsin Live Desk as we look at your vote for governor. We just heard from the two Republicans who already launched campaigns. Now let's hear from the Democrats. The lieutenant governor posted her announcement video privately the week before Governor Evers announced he wasn't running. We just heard from the governor about that he didn't tell her until the day of his announcement he wasn't running. Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley says he'll run, although he hasn't officially launched his campaign. Why was it so important to put out that release this morning, hours after the governor stepped aside?
Well, I think it was just important. One, I think many news cameras were following me everywhere trying to figure out what was next. But I think this is really about timing. To let folks know we're going to be getting into this race, I think it's important to acknowledge the work that Governor Evers has done for our entire community and our entire state, the foundation that he has laid, not just for Democrats, but Wisconsinites in general. But I also think that time is of the essence. You know, the GOP has two candidates already in this race. They're organizing, they're knocking on doors, they're fundraising. And every day that we take a step back is a day that they're going to get ahead of us. And so I wanted the community to know that I plan on getting into this race because I think that this is a moment that demands some strong and experienced leadership, not only who knows how to govern, but also knows how to campaign. Well, this campaign is going to be about how does everybody in the state of Wisconsin thrive, and no matter what corner you're in suburban, in rural, and in urban communities. This campaign isn't about me. This is about making sure that we can deliver for working people. We have seen Republicans trying to roll back the clock. They've undermined our public schools. They've restricted access to health care. And this is about being bold enough to build what is next. And so for me, what we have done here in Milwaukee County, the investments around public health, the investments in public safety, being able to get us through a fiscal recovery, we have results that we've been able to deliver. But every win that we've had for Milwaukee County has also been a win for every other community across this state. Being able to have shared revenue reform and being able to share that pot of money for all communities.
Democrats are doing some soul searching right now about the future of the party after what happened in 2024. Where do you stand on that issue of left versus right, left versus extreme left, I guess? You know, people were very critical on the left of the budget that Governor Evers signed. Would you have signed that budget as the governor?
Well, I don't know everything that was in this budget, but I can tell you that when I think about what we were able to deliver for Milwaukee County, this budget did absolute wonders. Being able to see increased investments that we had never seen in over 60 years, which is going to save local taxpayer dollars moving forward. And again, we should be able to spread that type of savings all throughout the entire state of Wisconsin, and that's why I'm running for this seat, or will be running for this seat.
Yeah. So kind of the verbiage is, you're announcing that you're going to run.
Yes.
So website, campaign video, all that's going to be when?
All of that will be coming out in the next few weeks, but we'll keep you tuned into what day that would look like.
When?
I mean, our job is to make sure that we can galvanize our community. As a Democrat running for this seat, I truly think that it's extremely important that we unify early, that we start knocking on doors, we start organizing, we start fundraising so we can get out our Democratic message. And so I'm going to continue to do that. We're going to go all across this state. We're not going to leave no stone unturned to deliver our message. I am looking to be the governor for everyone. And so when we make that announcement, that's when we're going to be able to roll out everything that people want to hear.
You're Democrat?
Well, I think the problem that we have seen in government, a lot of politics, especially at the national level, is people are telling other folks going into their communities about what they need to do. This campaign is going to be about the people. And so it is my goal to actually go around, talk to folks, incorporate their ideas into our platform, because we want people want a governor who's not only going to listen, but understands the issues at heart. And we have to allow those voices that are directly impacted by the policies that are happening at both the state and federal level, that they have a voice towards the solutions to their own problems.
Now, that budget has drawn some criticism from progressive lawmakers on the Democratic side, as well as union leaders. Would you have signed that budget if you were the governor at the time?
So the governor had to work with a Republican-led legislature that was not really interested in negotiating. So he signed the best budget that he could at the time. But we have a real opportunity in 2026 to flip not only the state Senate, but the state assembly, and put together a budget that's going to be helpful to everyone. And that includes increasing dollars for our public schools. We know that folks all across Wisconsin want to be doing that. We want to make sure we have health care that's accessible and affordable. We want to make sure that people can afford where they live. We know that housing is a real issue across Wisconsin. When I talk to families across all 72 counties, what I hear from them is they are doing everything right, but they still feel like they can't get ahead. And so I want to make sure in 2026, when I am governor, that we can do better and that we can get more of these initiatives into the budget this next time.
Let me ask you this as well. The campaign ad that we saw a clip of this morning also includes you calling President Donald Trump a maniac. Strong word, obviously. And if the legislature is not flipped, you would theoretically have to work with a Republican-controlled state government. How would you plan to build bridges in what is a very contentious time politically in our country?
So I've always been able to do that. I currently live in Waukesha County, which is a red county. And so I'm used to working across the aisle. I flipped a red district when I was in the assembly. So I've been able to do some hard things all across Wisconsin and ran statewide to make sure that people of Wisconsin are heard. But we're going to have to do more for Wisconsinites. We know that there are certain things that they need that have not happened when we've had a Republican-led legislature. And so as governor, I'm going to fight for those things. I'm going to fight for better public schools. I'm going to fight for better health care. I'm going to fight for lower cost of housing. I'm going to fight for union workers and jobs and making sure we can reverse Act 10 so that union workers can negotiate on their workplaces and be able to raise wages for everybody across Wisconsin. I know that that's what Wisconsinites deserve, and that's what I'm going to be fighting for.
Let me ask you a question that's been going around the newsroom since Governor Evers' announcement yesterday. It will be 16 years since we've had an open race for governor here in the state. The last time that the Democratic Party here in Wisconsin had a really high-stakes primary was 2022, the U.S. Senate race. Ultimately, a number of the other challengers dropped out before the primary. So the Democratic candidates ended up endorsing Mandela Barnes, who ultimately lost. But that primary ended up not being the voters' chance to kind of choose their candidate like it was supposed to be. So I'll ask you here today. We know County Executive David Crowley has decided to enter the race. Many others will join, as you have. Will you ensure the voters of Wisconsin that you will stay in the race through the primary, that the voters on the Democratic side will have their say?
So that is always the goal, to make sure that the Democratic primary voters can have their say. I'm going to make my argument to them, and then I'm going to make the argument to Wisconsin voters overall. I want to make sure that they have a chance to talk to me, to feel like, what I'm going to be fighting for, what I'm going to be doing as governor. Talk to me about my background in executive management. I haven't been a politician for very long. I haven't been in elected office. I spent almost all of my career working, lacing up my shoes, getting things done. That's what I'm going to do as governor.
And there's many more who could jump into this race. We'll look at those names coming up. Thanks for joining us. Your primary ballot could be pretty full. Here's who's considering a possible run for Wisconsin governor. State Senator Kelda Royce of Madison tells Fox 6 she's thinking it over. Former Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes tells Fox 6 he's considering a run for governor. Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson in the past has thought about running, but many insiders told me they didn't expect he'd actually run if his friend and colleague, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, runs. Crowley is running, so it's likely Cavalier Johnson will not. Then there's State Senator Chris Larson, also of Milwaukee. He tells Fox 6 he's getting a lot of encouragement. He's considering a run, but won't make any decisions until after Labor Day. Then there's Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul. He said no comment on that when we asked him on Friday. What are the odds you're going to be running for governor this next year?
As I said earlier today, probably better than 50-50. I've been using a steady, methodical process to go through this, and I'm going to make a decision sometime here in the next 30 to 60 days. Got a couple more things that I need to review. I want to make sure that I'm prepared. This is a big undertaking to run for governor of the state of Wisconsin. I need to make sure that I'm prepared if I choose to do it.
How much does winning President Donald Trump's endorsement play into your calculus right now as you're thinking about this?
Oh, that's certainly part of it. I mean, there's many other parts of it. I mean, you have to fully fund a campaign. Wisconsin campaigns are really expensive, as you know. I figure we have to raise $30 to $40 million. That's a really daunting task, putting together the people and the team to be able to be successful. Those are all things that I'm looking at this point. They're all part of it, including where President Trump is.
Have you yet talked with the president about who he might endorse in this race?
I have talked to the president. I talk to him occasionally about Wisconsin and what is going on here. He knows how important the state of Wisconsin is.
And when you talk to Wisconsin Republican insiders, they really say it's crucial for whoever wins that nomination. They're going to be the one that wins President Donald Trump's endorsement. So right now, that battle behind the scenes is trying to secure President Donald Trump's endorsement to then win the nomination for the Republicans. On the Republican side, that was Congressman Tom Tiffany speaking with us on Friday. Now, one of the state Democrats who's considering a run is Kelda Royce. We also spoke to her last week. Listen.
Is that something that you are considering, a run for governor?
I really appreciate the many folks who are reaching out to me and urging me to consider running for governor. I'm taking it under advisement and thinking about it. But one thing I can guarantee you is that regardless, I am going to spend the next year and a half relentlessly traveling the state, listening to voters, and doing my part to make sure that we have a Democratic governor and a Democratic legislature in 2026.
Well, that sounds a lot like you're pursuing something higher than just a state senatorship out of Madison.
Well, I think you really need all the pieces in place, right? We have a real possibility of winning a Democratic trifecta in 2026. And that's something that we have not experienced in Wisconsin since 2009. Even though we're a 50-50 purple state, we've been so heavily gerrymandered for the last generation that we've got a lot of work to do. And I really want to make sure that we are able to not just win, but that we're actually able to deliver for the people of Wisconsin.
So that is State Senator Kelda Royce thinking about a possible run for governor. Another name that's been speculated, floated, is the name of Attorney General Josh Kaul. We asked him if he's considering a run. He didn't have much to say. Listen.
So I look forward to continuing to work with Governor Evers in the year and a half ahead as we work to stand up for the best interests of the people of Wisconsin.
Did the governor give you a heads up at all?
No further comment about those issues at this point in time.
So pretty much no comment from the Attorney General, at least right now. So what do the numbers reveal? We'll dig into them coming up next.
This campaign is going to be about the people. And so it is my goal to actually go around, talk to folks, incorporate their ideas into our platform.
We're going to have to do more for Wisconsinites. We know that there are certain things that they need that have not happened when we've had a Republican-led legislature.
You look at the governance of a lot of the candidates who've already announced, a lot of the ones who are going to likely announce. It's not a great track record. More government spending and less money in your pocket.
I'm an outsider and a businessman, just like President Trump. And I have a vision for making this Wisconsin century, starting this decade.
So number crunchers are digging into who has a shot at winning this very important race. The Marquette Law School polls Charles Franklin. He's actually looking at this issue right now. He's with us right now. Charles, when can we expect your first poll on this race?
Sorry, I don't get any audio from you.
Okay. Let me check that really quick. This is live TV here on the live desk, so let me just see if we can get your audio, if you can get my audio pumped to you, Charles. Charles has been crunching the numbers on the Wisconsin race for years. He's been compiling data on exactly what Wisconsinites think of our current governor. Do they favor him? Do they like him? Do they want him to run for re-election? So these are all the questions that Charles has really been digging into as he's crunching the numbers. Charles, can you hear me now? Okay. So when we looked at the numbers from Charles Franklin earlier, 55% of Wisconsin said that were polled in his June poll told Charles Franklin that they didn't want Governor Evers to run for re-election. That was 55%. Now, it was very split between the parties. So if you ask Republicans, they were very much inclined to say he should not run for re-election. The Democrats did want to see him run for re-election. And then the independents were skewed more towards the answer of no, he should not run for re-election. So that's one of the things Charles Franklin's been looking at, is that question, should Evers run or not? And then the other question is, well, do they favor him? Charles, I understand you got our audio now. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Yes, thanks. Sorry about that.
No problem. Probably on our end here, Charles. When you look at the numbers here, we're really curious when you might start polling on the governor's race. When can we expect your first poll on this race?
Yeah, our next state poll is in October, and I think it's a good bet we'll ask something about it then. We haven't done any trial heats because there hasn't been at all clear what the field would be, or for that matter, whether Governor Evers was going to run again. So October will be our next chance to really take a look at the candidates who've announced at that point, and maybe a look back on the Evers administration.
And so that October poll that you're planning on the governor's race, that'll be looking potentially at the Democratic and Republican fields?
Yes. I mean, I don't know what that field will look like at that point, and I don't think it helps to go too deep into a race when most people aren't going to be very familiar with the candidates. But we will certainly start looking ahead to 2026 with that October poll.
Okay, that'll kind of launch us in. I mean, it seems like it's been really a sprint. We got a marathon until Election Day 2026, but the last week has been a sprint when Governor Evers on Thursday announced he's not running for re-election. This is now the first time since 2010 that we've had an open race for governor. There's no incumbent running. What is going on right now with the candidates who are thinking about running, the candidates who really launched hours after the governor made this determination not to run?
Yeah. You know, first of all, it's just that there's a lot of pent-up demand in the Democratic Party for people who think of themselves as potential gubernatorial candidates. Yeah, I count 10 names that have been tossed about. At least 6 or so of those seem like pretty serious possibilities, and the others just haven't said anything one way or another. One thing we absolutely know is that none of them will be nearly as well known as Tony Evers is right now, because you're a sitting governor. People have had 6.5 years to get to know you. They have opinions about him, both pro and con. But even the most important offices in the state below the governor tend to have an awful lot of people that don't pay a lot of attention to those people. And so I think part of the sprint is to get your name in the ring, make it clear you're going, and start building your campaign. But the other, it's more like a marathon from now until the primary in August next year, is going to be, first of all, introducing yourself to voters, building that name recognition, and after that, thinking about what issues you're running on and what you're going to focus your campaign on. but people have to at least recognize the name before any of the other stuff can really take hold.
So really kind of a blank slate right now for these candidates to paint a picture of themselves and maybe to potentially might be too early to start attacking the other competitors in these primaries. One of the things that's interesting when you look at the most recent statewide races, the incumbents have won, and we've split the vote between Republicans and Democrats. So you have Republican Senator Ron Johnson winning, you have Senator on the Democratic side, Tammy Baldwin winning, you have Tony Evers, governor, winning when he most recently ran in 2022. It kind of seems like we're a split state, we're a swing state, but we just continue battling. Really kind of, I think, shows the value of incumbency, no?
I think it does. And without that incumbency, with the completely open race, first of all, it levels the playing field for both parties. There are two announced Republicans and potentially some more Republicans who might yet get in the race. They're also not well known. And so instead of the situation with an incumbent who already has the name recognition against a challenger who has to build that up, here we're going to see two sides starting out at basically equal levels of obscurity, and their campaigns will introduce themselves first and foremost. There might be some debate about political issues, but it doesn't help to attack your opponent when nobody knows who your opponent is. So I expect that to be a process that comes later in the year, not here at the outset.
One of the things that was interesting in your June poll last month, you asked if Governor Tony Evers should run for re-election. Your poll found 55% of the state said no, he shouldn't. Is that part? I mean, I know he said it was really about the family. He's in his 70s now. He wanted to spend a lot more time with his wife Kathy and grandkids and children. But also, when you look at these poll numbers, is 55% saying he shouldn't run? Is that pretty much a deal breaker for the governor?
I wouldn't put it as a deal breaker. Within that, there were still 83% of Democrats that wanted him to run, but 15% of Democrats wanted not to run. And with independents who can swing elections here, 37 wanted him running, 50% not run, and the rest said they didn't know. Not surprisingly, Republicans didn't really want him to run. I think that what we see with the running again is that wasn't a prohibitively bad number, but it certainly signaled that there might be some issues and a little bit of reluctance even within the Democratic Party. Now, when former Governor Scott Walker was thinking about a third term, we asked in 2016 if he should run again in 18. 61% then said he should not run. That's a little bit worse than where Evers is right now. But of course, Walker had no trouble getting the nomination and only narrowly lost by just over 1 percentage point to Evers in 2018.
Very, very interesting to have that historical comparison here. When we look at the field of possible people that could run, several of them are Milwaukee Democrats. Can a Milwaukee Democrat do well outstate? I'm thinking about when our mayor Tom Barrett ran for governor. But really, can a Milwaukee Democrat at this point in Wisconsin's history do well out of state, out in the other parts of the state besides Milwaukee?
I think it's a challenge, though it's also a challenge for Madison Democrats, for that matter. You have a lot of the rural parts of the state that have become more Republican over the last 8 to 10 years, and they need to campaign there. One of the things you're hearing from multiple candidates is, I'm going to go to all 72 counties. I'm going to work everywhere in the state. I think that's part of it. But, you know, Mandela Barnes, in running for Senate in 2022, only lost by 1 percentage point. So I think that's an argument that Milwaukee Democrats may not be as disadvantaged as I think the conventional wisdom might think they are.
Okay, when I talked with insiders in Milwaukee and with the Democratic Party, they really felt like it was either going to be David Crowley, the county executive, or Mayor Johnson, that they both couldn't run at the same time for governor. And I know insiders said that Cavalier Johnson was going to defer to Crowley, and that seems like what we've got in play right now with him running. Is it possible for two Democrats from Milwaukee to run at the same time, or that really just hand the nomination to the Democrats from Dane County?
I certainly think it runs the risk of splitting the Milwaukee area Democratic vote between two well-liked people from that area. And it also is a matter of, can those divisions then be healed in the general election after the primary? So there's certainly a downside to having candidates from the same area competing with each other. though, Sarah Rodriguez is from the Milwaukee area as well. So it's not only Crowley and Johnson who are from Milwaukee.
That's true. And she has represented portions of Milwaukee and Waukesha counties. Turning to the Republicans, talked a little bit about the Democrats there. I want to talk about the Republicans. We heard how crucial it is to win that endorsement of President Trump. Is that really the make or break here for the nominee on the Republican side?
Well, certainly President Trump's nominees or his endorsements have carried a lot of weight. They have not always won. And we have had situations where Trump either doesn't endorse in a race or endorses two candidates in the same race. So I don't think we know very well how he will come down on that. And I think at this moment, neither of the two announced Republicans have close ties to Trump. Though as the race develops, you might very well see the Trump administration or the Trump political folks assess who they want to nominate, who they want to endorse. Surely that is a big part of a Republican nomination these days.
Well, Charles, thank you so much for your time. I know your next poll is going to be coming out this fall. I imagine some of the questions are going to be, do you even know who these candidates are? And I think we're going to have some eye-opening data on that when you finally do your poll this fall.
No, I think that's absolutely right. When Tony Evers first ran, 66% did not know who he was in February of 2018. That gives us a little perspective of what to expect with this crop of candidates.
And still won the Democratic nomination for governor, still won the governorship by about a little bit over a point that time in 2018, expanded that lead in 2022. Charles Franklin, Marquette Law School poll, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
So what's on the line for you? We'll look at that next with UWM Professor Emeritus Mordecai Lee. Stay with us. There are so many issues on the line in 2026, and you'll have the power to decide. To help shed light on all that, we're joined by UW Milwaukee Professor Emeritus Mordecai Lee. Mordecai, thanks so much for being with us today.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Jason.
So Democrats, they hope to flip the legislature and keep the governor's mansion. How likely do you think that is in 2026?
You know, Wisconsin voters are just so unpredictable. I've been following politics ever since I was an undergrad at Madison in the 60s. And I don't think I've yet predicted correctly what the outcome of any close race would be. But I suspect that what we're going to be seeing is that people want to hear about things they care about. In other words, state parks, state highways, state patrol, tax reform, shared revenue. Those are very concrete kinds of issues. And I suspect we're going to be hearing a lot of that on the Democratic side, maybe a little bit less of that on the Republican side. But from them, I think we'll be seeing some cultural issues from the culture wars. For example, I suspect that based on some other political races outside Wisconsin, that the issue of trans girls playing in girls' teams in high school is a very raw emotional issue. And that may well mobilize people who otherwise wouldn't be interested in these kinds of races.
And you know, Mordecai, when you look at that issue of the national politics at play, I mean, I definitely feel like you're going to see a lot of national issues take center stage here in Wisconsin. We're one of those key battleground states. It's going to be the midterms, where tends to be a pretty good year for the party not in the White House historically, Mordecai?
Well, you know, every time we go into an off-year election, people will say something like, this election will be a referendum on the president. And you could have a Democratic president in the White House or a Republican president. People always say that. And I suspect that at the very end, the bottom line is that people will vote based on the governorship or whatever the office we're talking about. In other words, I'm just really skeptical there are very many voters who are going to say, I love President Trump and I'm going to vote Republican for governor, or vice versa. It just doesn't seem to have much traction compared to the tangible things that a governor would be involved in. So for all we know, it will be a referendum on Trump and, for example, his changes to the federal government. On the other hand, that might just sort of be a piffle.
And maybe that's going to be a play during the primary. I think we both would agree that President Trump's endorsement is going to be crucially watched for this primary on the Republican side. We even saw on the Democratic side, Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez calling the president a maniac in her campaign launch video. So I think in the primary level, you're going to hear a lot of discussion, I think, about President Donald Trump.
There's no doubt about it. I think the most impressive detail is it was the race for, was it Congress up in Green Bay, where you had two state legislators, well-established, well-known, and then somebody who was totally unknown, who somehow got the endorsement of a candidate, Trump, and then just wiped out the other two candidates in a Republican race. And all his commercials were simply, I've been endorsed by President Trump. So that can be very powerful. You know, the ebbs and flows of public opinion can change. I suspect that what we're going to be seeing from the Republican candidates and from the Democratic candidates is a little too much sort of discipline, message discipline. In other words, they never want to speak off the cuff. They never want to improvise. They just want to say the soundbite that they've memorized on whatever issue it might be, whatever it's taxes or abortion or whatever that might be. I think that Wisconsinites don't much like those stiff candidates. And I suppose maybe one can interpret the two successful races by Evers was that he did not come across as a robot. He came across as a low-key, nice guy, wasn't hot in terms of his rhetoric, very casual, very informal, very likable. And I suspect that those are going to be issues that might make all the difference in the world when you look at these primaries. Think about it. To win a primary in Wisconsin, whether the Democratic or Republican, you don't need to have a majority of the votes. You simply have to have more votes than all the other candidates. That's the fancy word is plurality. So let's say there are 3, 4, 5 on the Democratic side, 3, 4, 5 on the Republican side. You could have the winner of that party's nomination. Gosh, they might win with 25% of the vote. That's hardly momentum in terms of going into November.
So we're looking at the slate of people that are at least officially launching or planning to launch, or those who are considering it, which is a whole slew of people. I mean, at this point, Mordecai, it's almost like not asking who is running, but who isn't going to run at this point.
That's right.
Anybody that you're expecting that's, you know, one of the names that people have floated out there is Attorney General Josh Kaul. I wonder, is he going to give up his... He would have a safe primary. He'd make if he stayed in his role as Attorney General and ran for that in 2026 when he's up for re-election. He's not going to have a primary. He'd be able to make it. He's now got incumbency and the advantages that come with having that name recognition. Would it be a mistake for him to run for governor when he would make it through the primary for AG with no problem whatsoever. But if he runs for Democrat, for governor, I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath potentially.
Jason, I really think you put your finger on it. There are some politicians who are risk takers. You know, they just roll the dice, up or out, win or lose. And there are some politicians, office holders, who are a little more conservative about political risks. So I think you're correctly describing what's going through Josh Kaul's mind in terms of, do I want to go up or out? Because if I, Josh Kaul, lose the primary or lose the November election, will I wake up the next morning and say, darn it, I wish I had run for re-election? Now compare that, let's say, to the Milwaukee County exec, the Milwaukee mayor, State Senator Kelda Roys. All of them have what's called a bye. In other words, if they lose, they go back to the job they have right now. And so they're much more prone to take risks compared to the Josh Kaul dynamic.
You've got a number of Democrats in the Milwaukee area that have considered running for governor, and we have, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, who's saying he's going to run. We have Mayor Johnson, who I don't think is going to run, but has at least thought about it. I don't think he's going to run because I think it would split the vote with his friend, David Crowley. And then we also have Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez, who's from Waukesha County, right on the border with Milwaukee County. Is having so many Democrats from Milwaukee in this race, including some others that are considering it. Senator Larson's considering it. Former Lieutenant Governor is also, Mandela Barnes, also considering a run. Does having so many Democrats in Milwaukee really wipe out the support in Milwaukee and hand this nomination to potentially a Democrat from Dane County?
You know, the conventional wisdom about Wisconsin politics is that being a candidate from Milwaukee is poison. In other words, that the outstate voters, and especially the swing voters, for some reason, have an animus about Milwaukee dominating politics. And when Scott Walker, as the county executive, then got elected governor, that was actually the exception to the rule rather than the rule itself. And so I think whichever name you just mentioned, there's going to be this sort of whispering campaign about sort of like a, psst, that person is from Milwaukee. And in some outstate counties, you might call it country and western Wisconsin, that might be a big deal. So I think they're taking a risk, not just in terms of splitting the vote, but just by the mere fact that they're from Milwaukee.
What did you make of the Lieutenant Governor? She had her video posted to YouTube the week before Governor Evers made his announcement he's not running for re-election. It was privately posted. It wasn't publicly published until after he made his announcement last week. And she put her video up online last Friday. What did you make about that, having that video ready to go, the campaign launch video ready to go a week before?
You know, being lieutenant governor is not necessarily a great launching point for a statewide race, simply because they're the number 2 person in the slate. They don't get as much campaign coverage. So she's been lieutenant governor for the last 4 years, or Mandela Barnes had been the lieutenant governor for 4 years before running for U.S. Senate. And to a certain extent, it didn't have a lot of advantages. It gave them some name recognition, it gave them some contacts from various events that they did as lieutenant governor. But all in all, it's not terrific. You know, it's not a slam dunk that this is the natural heir who would assume by stepping forward to inherit that office. And at this point, we now start getting into things like how much money can they raise? What's their name recognition? How good is their campaign organization outside of their home base? Things like that make all the difference in the world for winning, let's say, a statewide primary where you need to simply get more votes than the other candidates.
How much does this timeline play into this here, where she announces, you have David Crowley saying he's going to run pretty much hours after the governor said, okay, I'm not running for re-election. How important is the timeline and getting out there first and being maybe months ahead of maybe some of your competitors? Like, for example, Senator Chris Larson in Milwaukee said he wasn't going to be making a determination until around after Labor Day. So what does the timeline play in to get that launch quickly done?
Well, you know, if you can write a check for $1 million to have saturation advertising on every TV station in Wisconsin, you can suddenly have name recognition. But that's, in a sense, more the exception than the rule. I think we need to see how things look to a politician in terms of time. After all, to us as average voters, the August primary is, you know, a year away, 13 months away. but then you have to sort of back up from there. Well, what's the deadline for filing nomination papers? And then you back up from there. What's the deadline when you can begin circulating nomination papers? Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about a race that will get very concrete in about 6 months or so. So they don't have a lot of time. And organizing behind the scenes takes an enormous amount of time and effort. And fundraising takes time and effort. So I think for the candidates, the sooner they get going, the better it is for them, although that's no guarantee that they will win the primary.
Okay, well, there's definitely been a lot of history here as far as people running later and still winning the nomination. So we appreciate your insights today. I won't put you on the spot to tell me who you think is going to win the nomination on each side. That'll be for another interview because we ran out of time. But Mordecai Lee, UWM Professor Emeritus, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
And we have more coming up as far as what's on the line. Stay with us.